Okay, so let's have a bit of a talk about what's going to happen during your hatching program. All the equipment's set up. So what you should have in here is 12 or maybe a few more, but at least 12 fertilized chicken eggs. So these eggs are special eggs that have come from a farm where they've been fertilized by a rooster. That's why these eggs have baby chickens in them, and the eggs that you buy from the shops that you eat for breakfast, those ones don't have any baby chickens inside them. Now these baby chickens are going to start hatching really, really soon. So usually they start Tuesday and the Wednesday are the hatching days. Okay, so you should only have to wait one day. So tomorrow and Wednesday they'll start to hatch. Okay, so let's have a little look at what is happening inside the egg while your chicken's growing. So I've got this poster for you. So this poster will show you how those baby chickens grow inside the egg. Okay, so it starts off up here, and each picture is a day that embryo, that chicken, is growing inside the eggshell. So we're looking through the eggshell to see what's happening inside. So your chickens are growing for 21 days inside their eggs before they're ready to hatch. So we start off up here, and there's nothing to see. Like, the embryo is so small that we can't really see it with our eyes. And at first, all we can see is a bit of red, a bit of veiny looking stuff. And the first thing that starts to develop is this black dot, which is the chicken's eyes. They're the first things to develop. And it still looks a bit like a fleshy coloured jelly bean until we're over halfway and we can start to see a beak and some feet. And today, which will be the Monday, today would be day 20. Okay, so if we looked inside our eggs right now, this is what the chickens would look like. So when they start hatching tomorrow, they're going to look like this. So they're going to look really wet and tired when they hatch, because it's hard work for those chickens to get out of the eggs. What they have to do, if I was a chicken, I'm inside the eggshell, they have to wriggle around inside the eggshell and peck in a line so they can pop the top off, and then they kick their way out with their powerful feet. Some chickens can hatch pretty quickly, and within a couple of hours they've unzipped and they're out, but sometimes it could take them up to a whole day. So they're quite exhausted when they get out, and they need to have a rest and recover in the incubator until they look like this. So after a couple of hours, they'll fluff up with the heat, and they'll start to look cute and fluffy and dry and up on their feet, and that's when we can think about moving our chickens over to the brooder. But we don't want to be in a big rush to move our chickens over once they hatch, okay? The egg yolk has a lot of energy in it. So in the last couple of days, you can probably see how the yolk is absorbing into the chicken's body, okay? So they've absorbed all that energy, and that means they don't need any food or water. So we can leave them there without moving them for a day and a half, and it's no harm done at all. It's okay if you have lots of baby chicks and you want to move some over to the brooder sooner, that's fine, but just make sure that you do leave a couple in there, because the sound of those baby chicks cheeping and rustling around with the eggshells can stimulate the chicks that are still inside the eggshells to wake up and start hatching. And we also want to make sure if you're moving some that you don't move just one chicken by itself. Chickens always like to have a friend, and you'll find if a chicken's on its own, it will fret. So it will be chirping and it will be very unsettled. So you can move a couple at a time. You can move them before the 24 hours if you want to, but in general, we don't need to be in a hurry to move those chickens across. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a bit about the equipment now. So this box is the incubator. So the incubator does the job that the mother hen would have done on the farm, okay? So if we were on the farm, the mother chicken would have laid her eggs and she would be sitting right down on top of her eggs, and she'd be keeping those eggs warm with the heat of her body. Okay, so for the whole 3 weeks, the mother chicken would have hardly moved off those eggs, just staying there keeping them warm. She'd get up quickly to get some food and some water and straight back on top of those eggs, keeping them warm. Now, because we don't have the mother hen, the incubator does the mother hen's job. And as well as keeping our eggs warm, it also keeps tiny drops of water in the air, okay? It's called humidity, and the little drops of water are too small for us to see, but it just keeps the egg a little bit wet, okay? So we need that because inside the eggshell, it needs to stay a little bit wet so that our chickens can still move around and get themselves in position to hatch inside the egg. It's really important that only our educators or our teachers or maybe mum and dad operate the incubator, okay? So we only want to open the door when we have to, all right? So every time we open that door, all that nice warm air goes rushing out, okay? So we'll only open the door when we have to. So we'll only open it to fill up the tray of water in the bottom there. And this bottle here is just to remind you to top it up once a day. That tray always needs to have some water in it. We will only open the door the other times to move our fluffy, dry, cute chicks across to the brooder when they're ready. Okay, the rest of the time we will just look through the sides to watch the hatching activity. Now the temperature on this incubator has already been set for you, but it's a good idea just to check on it. So we want it between 99 and 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and the temperature will usually be in the front here, or perhaps even on top here, the thermometer might be. So the other thing we need to check is the vents. There's some vents in the side, might be some vents in the top and the other side, and we want to just make sure that they stay set to 1/3 open, okay? So that's really important because we don't want them all the way open because the humidity will come rushing out, but we don't want them all the way closed because the eggs still need a little bit of fresh air to come through. So we want them 1/3 open and just check on them every now and again. So with the incubator, we've got all the controls taped over because they shouldn't need adjusting, but if you need to, it's good to know that the on-off switch is just on the left-hand side and the controls are on the right-hand side. So if you're just checking the temperature and it needs a tiny adjustment, we can just turn it up or down a tiny bit using this dial and wait 5 minutes for it to respond. So you shouldn't need to adjust it, it should be set, but it's always good to know how to make small adjustments if we need to. Okay, so usually the eggs are delivered and they're ready to start hatching the next day. So if they're delivered on a Monday, for example, then they will hatch on the Tuesday and the Wednesday. And your hatching should only take about 2 or 3 days, but often people like to leave the incubator on until the Friday, for example, just to make sure that they've given those eggs enough chance to hatch. But I often turn mine off 24 hours after the last bit of hatching activity. So if your last chicken's hatched and nothing's happened for 24 hours, like you can't hear any cheeping or you can't see any cracks, then it's probably safe to turn that incubator off. So when you do turn it off, and obviously once your chicks are all moved over to the brooder, we can take out the tray of water in the bottom and just remove it. And we can also take out the chuck's cloth that's on the tray, along with any eggshells and any remaining eggs, and that can go into the bin. If you can bury any eggs in the garden, that's great, but if you can't, and they're definitely not going to hatch, then they can go into the bin, okay? We might not get all our eggs hatch, okay? Sometimes it works out really well and every single egg hatches, but it's very common to have a few eggs left over at the end. Okay, so this box over here is the brooder. This is where our chickens will live for the rest of the program, and it's like a mini farm, okay? So it's got everything that your chickens are going to need to be happy for the 2 weeks that they're with you. So in the bottom is just sawdust. It just acts like dirt. So you'll see the chickens will peck at it, they'll make a little nest and nestle down and go to sleep in it. They'll kick it at each other, they'll kick it in their water, they'll tip over the food and put it all through the sawdust. And it also soaks up their poos and wees so that you don't have to clean up after them during the program. The sawdust should soak up everything for the 2 weeks and you won't need to change it during that time. So in here is just the chick starter crumble. It's the special chick feed, and you'll find there's a white bucket in your black tub, and that will be enough food for the whole 2 weeks. In the first week when they're small, they won't eat or drink a whole lot. But as they get older, then they start to chow down a bit more. So that's the chick starter crumble. Over here in their drinker is just fresh water. Just like us, chickens need lots of fresh water every day. And this silver thing up here is a heat lamp. Okay, so there's no light that comes out of it, like the lights in the ceiling. You might have a red one, or you might have a black or white one, which has no light coming out of it. So sometimes it's hard to know if it's working, okay? So all we have to do is we put our hand on the sawdust and you'll feel that the sawdust is nice and warm, okay? It's really important that you don't put your fingers up inside the lamp because you'll burn the tips of your fingers because the globe will be really, really hot. That's quite painful, I've done it before. The chickens have got plenty of room to move away from the heat lamp if it's too warm, or if they're cold, you'll find that they huddle underneath that heat lamp. Okay, so you guys are welcome to hold the chickens. Once they've hatched and they've recovered and they're over in the brooder, you guys are welcome to hold them, but I'd like you to be sitting down, okay? Sitting down on the ground, and we just have one hand underneath and one hand on top, okay? So when they're small, if you're nice and quiet, they'll probably just close their eyes and go to sleep in your hand. But after a couple of days into the second week, they start to grow their feathers start to grow really quickly, and they will start to flap their wings around a lot more. They get a lot more flappy. So that's why we have one hand underneath and one hand on top, just to keep their wings from hurting themselves flapping around. Okay, and we need you to be sitting down because we don't want to, sometimes their feet on your hand might tickle or something like that, and we don't want your hands to come open and to drop those chickens from standing up. And we also don't want to squeeze those chickens too tight because it will hurt them. So we just have to be nice and gentle and careful when we hold our baby chicks. When your baby chicks are small, you can probably 10 to 15 minutes is a good time to hold them, and then you'll feel their bodies start to cool down. So they'll need to go back under that heat lamp to warm up again, and you can grab another chick and hold that one. So the chickens are different colors. So the boys are yellow and the girls are brown, okay? That's how you tell what sex they are, because these are highline chickens, okay? The reason we have these highline chickens is because we can tell the boys and the girls straight away, and because the girls, once they get a bit bigger, they start laying lots and lots of eggs. So they could lay 300 eggs a year. Each hen could lay 300 eggs a year. So they're really great, and they often end up as backyard layers in people's backyards. There is a green resource folder which is in your black box, which will give you lots of information about the chickens. And we also have these instructions which recaps a little bit of what I've talked about. Well, thanks for watching. Please visit us at UCanHatchUs.com.au for more information, and get in touch with me if I can help.